The emergency alarm screamed through the Galactic Council chambers. Ambassador Telvesh felt his 3 hearts racing as the distress signal filled the air with desperate static and broken words. The Valari were dying. Telvesh looked at the holographic display showing the Valari colony on the edge of known space. The crystalline beings were peaceful traders who had never hurt anyone. Now the Kresh swarm had surrounded their world like hungry wolves. The images showed Valari cities crumbling under heavy weapons fire. Their transparent bodies shattered like glass when the Kresh soldiers attacked. "We must help them," Telvesh said to the council. His voice shook with emotion. Council leader Narration closed her eyes. She was old, very old, and had seen many wars. "Our military forces are fighting on 6 different fronts. We have no ships to send, no soldiers to spare. Then they will die," Telvesh whispered. "All of them." The other council members sat in silence. They knew Narration spoke the truth. The galaxy was burning with too many conflicts. Resources were stretched thin. Every species that could fight was already fighting somewhere else. Telvesh returned to his office feeling defeated. He could not accept this. There had to be someone, somewhere, who could help. He began searching through the old database, looking for any military force they had missed, any ally they had forgotten. That was when he found it. A file marked with red warning symbols, a quarantine beacon around a small yellow star. System designation, Sol. Planet designation, Sol 3. Common name, Earth. His hands trembled as he opened the file. The security clearance required was enormous, but his position as ambassador gave him access. What he read made his blood run cold. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world, the highest danger rating in the database. The planet had gravity that would crush most species, radiation levels that would kill them slowly, weather patterns that could freeze or boil water without warning, diseases that evolved faster than medicine could fight them, predators everywhere, even in the oceans. And the dominant species, humans, had evolved to survive all of it. The report said humans could run for hours without stopping. They could heal from terrible injuries. They could eat foods that were poison to other species. They could survive in deserts, frozen wastelands, and jungles filled with creatures designed to kill them. They had a thing called adrenaline that made them stronger and faster when they were afraid or angry. But the most frightening part was their history. Humans had survived 5 mass extinction events on their planet. They had fought wars against each other for thousands of years. They had split the atom and created weapons that could destroy entire cities. They had diseases that killed millions, and they learned to defeat them. When their planet tried to kill them with ice ages and volcanoes, they adapted and spread across every continent. The file was 300 years old. It said that humanity had just developed basic spaceflight when the quarantine was placed. The Galactic Council had decided to leave them alone, to watch from a distance, to never make contact. Humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too violent. But Telvesh noticed something else in the report. Humans had art, music, philosophy. They wrote poetry about death and beauty. They created religions and laws. They had something called love that made them protect each other, even strangers. The report said humans would die for ideas, for principles, for people they barely knew. Telvesh made his decision. He brought the file to the emergency council meeting. "Absolutely not," Narration said when she saw the Earth file. "Humans are forbidden contact. They are too dangerous. The Valari have 6 hours before the Kresh break through their final shields," Telvesh replied. 6 hours before every single one of them dies. We have no one else to send." The council chamber erupted in argument. Some members were terrified of humans. Others thought the idea was insane. A few suggested that risking contact with a death world species was worse than letting the Valari die. But Telvesh played the distress signal again. The sound of Valari children crying. The desperate pleas of their leaders. The screams as another building fell. "What kind of galaxy are we building?" Telvesh asked quietly. "If we let good people die because we are afraid to ask for help?" The vote was close, very close. but fear of guilt won over fear of humans. The Council authorized first contact. Telvesh worked with the linguistics team through the night. They had been studying human broadcasts for centuries without humans knowing. They built a translation program and sent a message to Earth. A simple message explaining who they were, where the Valari were, and what was happening. The response came faster than expected. Earth's united government had received the message. They had seen the images of the dying Valari, and they sent back a transmission that was translated into Galactic Standard. 6 words appeared on Telvesh's screen. "We're coming, hold on, stay alive." Telvesh immediately sent another message to the Valari colony. He told them help was coming. He told them to hold on just a little longer. He did not tell them who was coming. He was not sure himself if he had saved them or doomed the entire galaxy. But as he watched human ships begin to move on long-range sensors, ships that launched with incredible speed toward the Valari system, he felt something he had not felt in weeks. He felt hope. The Valari had stopped hoping. Their shields were failing. The Kresh swarm surrounded their planet like a dark cloud. Every few minutes, another building exploded. Another 100 lives ended. The crystalline people huddled together in underground shelters, holding their children close, singing their death songs. Then the sensors detected something, ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Not Galactic Council ships. Something else. The Kresh detected them too. Their war leader, Kreshnak, laughed when he saw the newcomers. Only 15 ships against his fleet of 200. He ordered his forces to ignore them and continued the assault on the planet. These new fools would die quickly enough, but the human ships did not behave like any vessels Kreshnak had seen before. They did not form elegant formations. They did not perform ceremonial challenges. They simply accelerated toward his fleet at speeds that should have torn their ships apart. Admiral James Chen sat in the command chair of the USCS Defiance, watching the enemy fleet grow larger on his screens. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency. They had trained for this. Humanity had always known that one day they would meet other life in space. They had not expected it to be a rescue mission, but they adapted quickly. "All ships, this is Chen. Remember the briefing. These Kresh fight in rigid formations. They rely on shields and heavy weapons. They have never fought anyone who uses our tactics. Let's show them why Earth builds survivors." The human fleet split into 3 groups. They did not slow down. They dove into the Kresh formation like sharks attacking a school of fish. The Kresh fired their weapons, massive energy beams that could cut through standard military ships. But human ships had armor. Thick, redundant, over-engineered armor designed by people who assumed everything would go wrong. The beams hit the human ships and burned into the armor, but the ships kept coming. Kreshnak felt the first flutter of concern. These ships were built like they expected to be hit, like they were designed to take damage and keep fighting. The human ships opened fire. Their weapons were different too. Kinetic accelerators that threw chunks of metal at incredible speeds, missiles that could think and dodge, electronic warfare that made Kresh sensors scream with false information. And their ships moved like they were dancing, spinning and weaving in ways that should not be possible for vessels that size. Within 10 minutes, 20 Kresh ships were destroyed or crippled. The rest of the fleet tried to regroup, but the humans gave them no time. They pressed the attack with frightening aggression. On the planet's surface, the situation was desperate. The Kresh had landed ground forces, massive warriors in powered armor who stood 3 meters tall. They were pushing through the last Valari defenses, crushing everything in their path. That was when the human transport ships entered the atmosphere. The Valari watched in confusion as the ships dove through fire and explosions that should have destroyed them. The ships landed hard and their doors opened. Humans emerged. They were so small compared to the Kresh warriors. Average height, moderate build, soft skin with no natural armor. The Valari felt their hope die again. How could these small creatures help? Captain Maya Rodriguez stepped onto the battlefield of an alien world and felt her adrenaline spike. The air was toxic by human standards, but her suit handled it. The gravity was heavy, but she had trained in worse. The radiation from the damaged shield generators would kill most species in hours. Humans could handle it for days. First platoon, establish a perimeter around the civilian shelters. Second platoon, flank left. Third platoon, you're with me. Let's go hunting. The Kresh saw the humans and laughed. Their war chief ordered his forces to crush these tiny creatures. The Kresh warriors charged forward, expecting easy kills. They learned their mistake quickly. Humans moved fast. They coordinated without speaking. Using hand signals and technology the Kresh could not jam. They used the terrain, taking cover behind rubble, attacking from unexpected angles. And their weapons hit hard. Armor-piercing rounds that could punch through Kresh shields. Explosives that used human military doctrine. If you can see it, you can hit it, and if you can hit it, you can kill it. But what truly shocked the Kresh was how humans fought when wounded. A Kresh warrior injured would retreat or die. A human injured would become more dangerous. They had medical training that could keep someone alive long after they should be dead. They had stubbornness that made them keep fighting even when their bodies said stop. One Kresh warrior cornered a human soldier who had been shot twice. The Kresh expected begging or surrender. Instead, the human smiled, pulled a grenade, and said something in their language that the translator rendered as, "See you in hell." The explosion killed them both. The Kresh began to understand. These were not normal prey. These were predators. Rodriguez led her team to the largest group of Valari civilians, refugees trapped in a crystalline building surrounded by Kresh forces. Her team moved with practiced precision, using suppressing fire and grenades to push through. When they reached the building, Rodriguez saw the Valari inside, including children, all staring at her with huge, frightened eyes. "We're getting you out," she said through her translator. "Stay close. Do what we say. We don't leave anyone behind." The extraction was brutal. Rodriguez lost 3 soldiers holding the line while the civilians evacuated. But they got every single Valari to the transport ships. Not one left behind. In orbit, Admiral Chen watched the tactical display. The Kresh fleet was breaking. They had lost 60 ships to only 3 human vessels destroyed. The rest of the Kresh ships were fleeing. On the ground, the Kresh warriors were retreating too. They had never encountered an enemy that treated warfare like humans did, as if it was a science they had perfected through 10,000 years of practice. The battle was over. The Valari were saved, and across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the recordings of the battle in stunned silence. They had summoned the Deathworlders, and the Deathworlders had answered. The news spread through the galaxy faster than light. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they had arrived fighting. Every species watched the battle recordings. Every government analyzed the data. Every military strategist tried to understand what they had witnessed. In the scholarly towers of Luminoth Prime, researchers gathered around holographic displays showing human biology. Professor Kelthan had spent 40 years studying xenobiology. He had examined thousands of species, but humans confused him. "Look at this," he told his students, pointing at a human skeleton. "Their bones are dense, designed to handle high gravity, but they are also light enough for endurance running. They have persistence hunter physiology. On Earth, humans used to chase prey animals until the prey died of exhaustion. Humans can run for hours, even days." A student asked, "What about their weaknesses? Surely such an aggressive species has vulnerabilities." Kelthan pulled up more data. "That is the fascinating part. They have many weaknesses. Their skin tears easily. They need very specific temperature ranges. They require constant hydration. They need oxygen that is toxic to many species. They have poor natural weapons compared to predators on their world. By all logic, they should have gone extinct. Then how did they survive? They made tools. They cooperated. They learned. And most importantly, they refused to give up. Humans have a saying, survival of the fittest. But on Earth, fitness meant adaptability, intelligence, and sheer stubbornness. Across the galaxy, the Draken hegemony had a different reaction. War leader Drakthor watched the battle recordings with growing anger. His species had dominated the galactic military scene for 2 centuries. They were the strongest, the most feared. Now these humans had appeared and won a battle that should have been impossible. "They are a threat," Drakthor told his council. "They must be eliminated before they grow stronger." His advisors agreed. The Draken began planning. They would wait, watch, and when the time was right, they would crush humanity before it could challenge Draken supremacy. Meanwhile, on dozens of worlds, refugee species looked at the recordings with different eyes. They saw hope. For years they had suffered under aggressive neighbors, unable to defend themselves with no one willing to help. Now they saw a species that answered a call for help from complete strangers. The Galactic Council formally invited humanity to join. Earth's government accepted and sent their delegation. The ambassador was Dr. Amara Okafor, a Nigerian scientist who had worked in disaster relief for 20 years before becoming a diplomat. She was not military. She was not aggressive. She was exactly the person Earth wanted to introduce to the galaxy. Her first speech to the Galactic Council became famous across 1,000 worlds. She stood at the podium, small compared to many of the alien delegates, and spoke with quiet confidence. We come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. We had earthquakes that destroyed cities, volcanoes that blocked out the sun, diseases that killed millions, ice ages and droughts and floods, predators with claws and teeth designed for hunting. We should have died. Most species would have died. She paused, looking around the chamber. But we learned to be stubborn. We learned to help each other. Because on Earth, the only way to survive was to work together. When the Valari called for help, we did not hesitate. Not because we are warriors. Not because we wanted glory. But because someone needed help, and we could provide it. The speech moved many delegates. But it also confirmed what others suspected. Humans were dangerous not just because of their military capability, but because of their philosophy. They believed in helping others. They believed in sacrifice. They believed that strangers were friends they had not met yet. This made them unpredictable. Most galactic species calculated cost versus benefit. Humans seemed to operate on emotion and principle. That was terrifying to some and beautiful to others. The real test came 3 months later. A counselor named Veshnar, a tentacled being from an ocean world, had a child who became sick with a rare disease. Galactic medicine could not help. The disease was spreading too fast. The child had days to live. Dr. Okafor heard about this and asked to see the child. Veshnar was desperate enough to agree. Okafor brought a human medical team. They analyzed the disease and recognized something. This is similar to a cancer we have on Earth, Okafor explained through translators. Our treatment is primitive by galactic standards. We use surgery and radiation and chemicals that are toxic. But it works. Veshnar was shocked. Your medicine hurts the patient? Yes, because on Earth we learned that sometimes you have to hurt to heal. Sometimes survival means enduring pain. Will you let us try? Veshnar agreed. The human medical team operated for 12 hours straight. They removed the diseased tissue with techniques that galactic doctors considered barbaric. They used radiation therapy that made the child sick. They administered chemicals that were carefully balanced poisons, but it worked. The child lived. The disease was gone. Veshnar came to Okafor with tears in his eyes. You saved my child using methods we would never consider. Methods that came from a world where you had to fight death itself every day. Okafor smiled. On Earth, death is patient. It waits for everyone. So we learned to be impatient. We learned to fight. We learned that sometimes the only way forward is through the pain. The story spread. Humans became known for 2 things: their ferocity in battle and their refusal to let anyone die if they could prevent it. They were protectors and warriors, healers and fighters, contradictions that made sense only when you understood where they came from. Other species began requesting human assistance. Not just military help, but medical aid, disaster relief, and engineering support. Humans were good at solving problems that seemed impossible because impossibility was just another word for difficult. But not everyone was pleased. The Draken watched humanity grow stronger and more popular. They saw their influence fading, and they began to plan their attack. In a secret meeting, Drakthor gave his orders. We will strike at a human civilian target. We will show the galaxy that these Deathworlders can bleed. We will teach them fear. The Draken prepared their fleet. They chose their target carefully. A human colony ship carrying 3,000 civilians to a new world. No military escort, no weapons, just families and dreams. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you made humans angry. The colony ship New Horizon never saw the attack coming. The Draken warships emerged from faster-than-light travel with weapons already firing. The civilian ship had basic shields meant for asteroid deflection, nothing military-grade. The Draken tore through them like paper. 3,000 human civilians died in less than 5 minutes. Families, children, elderly people dreaming of a new world, all gone. The Draken recorded the attack and broadcast it across the galaxy with a simple message. Humans are not special. They die like everyone else. Earth's response was silence. For 3 full days, humanity said nothing. The Galactic Council tried to contact them. Allies tried to offer condolences. But Earth was silent. Ambassador Okafor finally appeared before the Galactic Council. Her face was calm, but her eyes were different, harder, colder. She spoke in a quiet voice that somehow filled the entire chamber. The Draken have made a mistake. They think we are afraid. They think we will negotiate or seek peaceful resolution. They do not understand us at all. She paused. 3,000 civilians are dead. 3,000 people who were no threat to anyone. The Draken killed them to send a message. We received it. Now we will send our reply. What will you do? Council Leader Morashan asked carefully. We will remove the Draken threat permanently. The word choice was deliberate. Not defeat, not punish, remove. The Galactic Council urged caution. They suggested negotiations. They offered to mediate. Okafor listened politely, then said something that became another famous human quote. You do not negotiate with cancer. You cut it out. Earth's military mobilized, but not with the speed and chaos the galaxy expected. Humans moved with cold precision. Admiral Chen coordinated with allied species, gathering intelligence. Human ships positioned themselves at strategic locations. They did not rush in. They planned. The Draken expected immediate retaliation. They prepared for a frontal assault on their borders. They gathered their fleet and waited for the angry humans to charge in and die. But humans had been fighting wars for 10,000 years. They knew that anger without strategy was just suicide, so they used something the Draken did not expect. They used patience. Human Special Forces teams infiltrated Draken space using stealth ships. These were small crews of highly trained soldiers who could operate independently for months. They mapped Draken defenses. They hacked communication networks. They identified supply routes and command structures. One team, led by Commander Sarah Kim, performed an operation that became legendary. They used EVA suits to spacewalk through the vacuum toward a Draken command ship. The temperature was -200 degrees. The radiation would kill most species in minutes. But humans had evolved on a planet with an ozone layer that barely worked. They had evolved to repair radiation damage, and their technology compensated for the rest. Kim's team attached themselves to the hull of the command ship and waited. For 72 hours they waited in the freezing void. No sleep, taking turns staying alert, eating nutrient paste and drinking recycled water. A Draken soldier would have died in the first hour. Most galactic species could not survive more than 6 hours in those conditions. But humans were persistence hunters. They knew how to wait. When the command ship entered battle, Kim's team infiltrated through a maintenance port. They moved through the ship like ghosts, using the chaos of battle as cover. They reached the command center and captured the Draken admiral alive, then extracted using an emergency escape pod. The Draken fleet lost its coordination. Human ships, which had been carefully positioned, struck from multiple angles. They did not fight for glory or honor. They fought to win. When a Draken ship was disabled, humans destroyed it completely. No survivors to rebuild, no ships to salvage. Total elimination of military assets. But the ground war was where humans truly demonstrated their nature. The Draken had fortified a key planet called Karnak. The fortifications were considered impenetrable. Mountain bunkers with shield generators, automated defenses, natural choke points that favored the defenders. Human military doctrine had a saying, no fortress is impenetrable if you are willing to pay the cost. But humans were not wasteful with lives. Instead, they were creative. They dropped a battalion of Marines not at the fortress but in the hostile wilderness 50 kilometers away. The jungle was toxic to most species. Predators hunted in packs. The temperature ranged from freezing at night to boiling during the day. The Draken assumed no one could cross it. But humans came from Earth, from jungles and deserts and Arctic tundras. Lieutenant Marcus Webb led his battalion through hell. They moved at night when temperature was bearable. They treated the toxic environment like a puzzle to solve. They studied the predators and learned to avoid them or kill them. When soldiers got sick, human field medicine kept them moving. The Draken detected them too late. The battalion emerged from the wilderness exhausted but alive and attacked the fortress from behind. From the undefended side that the Draken thought was protected by nature itself, the fortress fell in 18 hours. But humans did not stop there. They pushed deeper into Draken territory, not conquering, not occupying, eliminating military capability. After 6 months, the Draken hegemony was broken. Their fleet was scattered. Their military infrastructure was destroyed. Their economy was in collapse. War leader Drakthor, watching his empire crumble, finally understood his mistake. He had thought humans were just another species. Strong, yes, but manageable. He did not understand that humans were survivors who had turned survival into an art form. They did not just know how to fight. They knew how to win. The Draken sent a message requesting terms of surrender. Admiral Chen received it on the bridge of the Defiance. His crew waited for his response. Chen thought about the 3,000 civilians, about the families destroyed, about the message the Draken had tried to send. Tell them we accept their surrender under the following terms: complete military disarmament, reparations to the families of the New Horizon victims, war crimes trials for those who ordered the attack, and they will never threaten another species again. And if they refuse? His second officer asked. Chen's expression did not change. Then we continue until they cannot refuse. The Draken accepted. They had no choice. And the galaxy learned several important lessons about humanity. First, humans were protective of their own to an extreme degree. Second, human patience was more dangerous than human rage. Third, humans did not fight to prove they were strong. They fought to eliminate threats. And finally, humans had words like vengeance and remember that were central to their culture for good reason. The Kresh swarm, watching from the shadows, noted all of this. They decided that human space was somewhere they would never go. Some prey was not worth hunting. The war was over, but the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. 1 year had passed since the Draken War ended. The galaxy had changed in ways no one had predicted. Ambassador Okafor stood before the Galactic Council, looking at faces that had become familiar. Some were friends, some were merely allies, but all of them saw humanity differently now. We have come far in a short time, Okafor said. When we first joined this council, many of you were afraid of us. Some still are. I understand. We come from a world that would kill most of you in days. We have capabilities that seem frightening. But I want you to understand what humans truly are. She pulled up images on the holographic display. The first showed human medics treating wounded Draken soldiers after the war. The second showed human engineers helping to rebuild infrastructure on former Draken worlds. The third showed a human teacher in a mixed-species classroom. Children from 6 different worlds learning together. We do not conquer. We endure. We do not dominate. We outlast. And when someone calls for help, we answer. That is who we are. The Valari delegate rose to speak. His name was Thelris, and he had been in one of the shelters that Captain Rodriguez had defended. The Valari people will never forget what humanity did for us. When everyone else said we were doomed, humans came. They bled for us. Some of them died for us, and they were strangers. Other delegates nodded. In the year since first contact, humanity had participated in 17 rescue operations, including dangerous missions that no other species would attempt. They had shared medical technology that was crude by galactic standards, but effective in ways that advanced medicine was not. They had contributed to peacekeeping forces, and their presence alone often prevented conflicts because no one wanted to fight near humans. But the integration had not been easy. Cultural differences caused problems. Humans formed emotional bonds quickly, which confused species that did not have similar social structures. They had concepts like honor and duty that led them to make illogical sacrifices. They cried at sad stories and laughed at danger. They were contradictions wrapped in soft skin and stubborn determination. Still, the galaxy adapted. Mixed species crews became common, especially for dangerous missions. Human crew members often volunteered for the most hazardous positions. They were good at staying calm in crisis situations because crisis was normal for them. When a ship lost life support, most species panicked. Humans started fixing the problem while holding their breath. The most successful mixed crews learned to appreciate human quirks. The way they told stories to stay entertained during long voyages. The way they exercised constantly to maintain their strength. The way they adopted alien crew members into their social groups with an ease that seemed impossible. A Luminoth scientist named Kelthin published a paper about human pack bonding behavior. He described how humans would form emotional attachments to almost anything. They had bonded with Earth animals, even dangerous ones. They bonded with their ships, naming them and speaking to them. They bonded with alien species within days of meeting them. Humans survived on Earth by forming complex social structures, his paper explained. They are biologically programmed to create communities. This makes them excellent team members, but it also means they will protect their team with frightening intensity. On the Valari homeworld, a monument was erected in the capital city. It showed a human soldier kneeling beside a Valari child offering protection. The inscription read simply, "They came when no one else would." Similar monuments appeared on other worlds. Humans had saved the Valari from the Kresh. They had negotiated peace between the Thernax and the Quillith. They had provided disaster relief after a solar flare devastated the mining colonies of Vornus Prime. Each time, humans asked for nothing in return. They helped because helping was what they did, but challenges remained. A new crisis emerged in the galactic core. A stellar anomaly was growing, threatening to destabilize several star systems. The radiation levels around the anomaly were lethal. The gravitational forces would tear most ships apart. Scientists predicted that millions would die if the anomaly was not contained. The Galactic Council debated solutions. Every proposal required sending ships and people into conditions that were almost certainly fatal. No one wanted to volunteer their people for a suicide mission. Ambassador Okafor listened to the debate, then spoke quietly. "We will go." The chamber fell silent. Council leader Narration stared at her. "Ambassador, you cannot be serious. The conditions near the anomaly would kill your people." "The conditions would be difficult," Okafor corrected. "But we have studied the data. It is survivable with the right equipment and training. It will not be easy. We will lose people. But millions of lives are at stake. Why would you sacrifice your people for this?" Okafor smiled sadly. "Because that is what humans do. We see a problem that needs solving. We see people who need help. And we do not ask if it is easy or safe. We ask if it is necessary." Earth sent 3 research vessels into the anomaly zone. The crews were volunteers, every single one. They knew the risks. They went anyway. Admiral Chen himself led the mission, now retired from active combat but still serving humanity's need to help. The mission was brutal. 2 ships were damaged by radiation and gravity fluctuations. 17 crew members died. But they gathered the data needed. They found a way to stabilize the anomaly using a series of controlled detonations that would redirect its energy harmlessly into deep space. When the mission returned, they were not celebrated as heroes. They were simply thanked for doing their job. Because to humans, helping others was not heroic. It was expected. In classrooms across the galaxy, young aliens learned about Earth. They studied the death world and its impossible conditions. They learned about human history, about the wars and diseases and extinctions that humans had survived. They learned about human culture, the art and music and stories that came from a species that knew death intimately. One young Valari student asked her teacher, "Why did they help us? They did not know us. We could not offer them anything. Why did they come?" The teacher, an old Luminoth scholar, thought carefully before answering. Humans learned something on their harsh world that many species never learn. They learned that survival is not about being the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. Survival is about who you protect when the darkness comes. Humans protect others because that is how they survived on Earth. And they brought that lesson with them to the stars. On Earth, in the city of Lagos, Dr. Amara Okafor sat with her family, watching the sunset. Her granddaughter asked her about the alien world she had visited, about the species she had met, about the adventures she had experienced. "Grandma, are we really special?" the child asked. "The way the aliens say we are?" Okafor pulled her granddaughter close. "We are not special, little one. We are just stubborn. Our world tried to kill us and we refused to die. The universe tried to make us give up and we refused to quit. And when others needed help, we refused to look away. That is not special. That is simply being human." Far above, human ships prepared for their next mission. A distress signal had been received from the edge of known space. Someone needed help, and as always, humanity would answer. The stars belonged to many species now, but they belonged especially to those who refused to surrender, who refused to abandon others, who refused to accept that some problems were too hard to solve. The stars belonged to the stubborn, and humanity had proven they were the most stubborn of all.